right, what's up? Good morning, PT on Ice Daily Show. Sorry we're coming at you an hour later than usual. Had to make some changes this morning, but great to be here. Jeff Moore here, CEO of ICE, lead faculty for cervical and lumbar spine divisions. First things first, thanks everyone for a great weekend last weekend. It's Tuesday. I didn't jump on yesterday. Alan was on. So thanks to Avera, we had a full house over in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And then Justin and Morgan had a blast down there in Baton Rouge with Delta Physical Therapy. So a couple of great courses going on over the weekend. Had a great time. A lot of good stuff coming up. I will be in Birmingham, Alabama with Zach Morgan this weekend. We've got a few spots left for that lumbar spine course if anybody wants to jump in. And then what else is coming up? Online, we've got out-of-network step-by-step. So if you're thinking about opening an out-of-network practice, cash-based out-of-network practice, Sarah Heron of ICE and Aero Physical Therapy is going to be launching our next cohort. I think it's October 14th. I want to say we've already got a good dozen or so in that group. So should have a handful of seats left, but not a ton. So if you're thinking about opening a practice, ptonice.com, go check that out. Well, what's up, everyone? Good morning. So I want to talk a little bit this morning about this role of short-term change because it comes up every weekend on the road, unfailingly. It comes up, and it's something that I think is misunderstood, right? So we speak often in our spine courses and the ones that I teach, cervical and lumbar, as well as all of our courses, about this idea of figuring out what the primary symptom generator is, right? Where are the symptoms coming from? Now, we are aware that pain is more multifactorial than a single nociceptive symptom generator, but there does tend to be a region that is driving, especially in acute, subacute, mechanically driven pain, that is driving a large part of the patient's complaints, right? And a lot of our exam is figuring out where that is, right? Is it the lumbar spine versus the hip, right? Is it the neck or is it the shoulder? Or is it the T-spine? Like what area seems to be driving a lot of the symptom behavior? Now, the idea there is that once we figure that out, we could target some intervention into kind of where that fire is burning, if you will, and create some really significant change, right? So if we isolate the fact that somebody is having a lot of the drive coming from their mid-cervical spine, right, and it's really acute, we've got asymmetrical motion on board, we've got pain with PAs, we've got localized cervical issues, that addressing maybe some manipulation or mobilization into that region might be able to really take the edge off the symptoms early on. And the accusation, of course, that comes along with that is that we are being obsessed with short-term change. And I just think that's really coming from left field, right? I know it can look that way, trying to find out where the symptoms are coming from, our early intervention targeting symptoms. Like I can certainly appreciate where folks are getting that notion. But I think you've got to zoom out and look at the bigger clinical picture, right? Because the reality is that what we're doing is using significant within session or inter-session early symptom change, right, to create buy-in for more challenging asks, right? That's really the process, right? Your patients coming, and certainly front of mind are their symptoms, at least in most cases. Front of mind are symptoms, right? They really need that edge taken off. I mean, think about that patient who comes in with that screaming radic, right? And kind of walking in like this, trying to get the shoulder elevated, having a lot of pain in their armpit and scapula and down their arm, can't drive, can't wash their hair, right? Really kind of having a tough go. Certainly for that patient, symptoms are highly relevant, right? And you going after those and telling the patient that we're going to be able to make some change and take the edge off and make the next couple of days more tolerable, right? And then delivering upon that begins to build trust and deepen this relationship that allows you to make what we think are the bigger and more important asks. We don't think the symptom change is the big focus, is the big thing. We think the big picture is the big thing. But we do think that capitalizing on these early promises, making these early changes on things the patient finds to be the most relevant at that point in time, meeting them where they are, allows us a chance to make the bigger asks. Because if you think of what the bigger asks are, right? The moment that patient's on board and the moment they're saying, okay, I'm already feeling a bit better. This is going well. I'm glad that I'm here. It seems like these folks really know what they're doing. I'm going to invest in this process. The moment these things start to happen, which do tend to happen after really significant and relevant short-term changes, now you can zoom out. And now you can start making this pitch to the patient of, okay, I'm glad you're feeling better, Joanne. I really am. Now here's the key, right? We've got to clean up that T-spine a little bit, right? We've got to look at some of your form with this overhead work. We've got to look at that shoulder capacity. I know your neck is driving a lot of your pain, but in many cases, right, the neck is more of a victim than it is the problem. Now, I'm glad we're getting some forward progress there, but now it's time to zoom out and really fix this thing. Now it's time to watch you move. Now it's time to really get after some of the regional, interdependent, but relevant issues going on that are really going to take care of this thing long term. And when the patient has made a mental commitment that they believe in the process and they like where they are and they want to see it through, that ask becomes so much more reasonable than it is if you open up with it on day one. If you open up by saying, look, I know your neck is the problem, but we really think that treating some of these other areas that might not have a direct effect on your symptoms over the next few months is really going to be the most important variable. It's just a tough ask, right? It's coming at the patient where they aren't and asking changes that they aren't currently focused on before you've developed layers in that relationship. Whereas if you do make those early changes, that ask is so much more palatable. Other things we ask at this point, once that patient's momentum is driving, once the commitment is there, are things along the prevention spectrum, right? So this is where all of our conversations begin pretty early on with, look, we need you to get some of that sugar out of your diet. Like you're eating like nonsense, right? And that's not helping the cause. We got to get some of that stuff out of there. We've got to build some general fitness, right? How fit will you let me get you over the next 6 to 8 weeks? The more that we can build that fitness, the more we can send you out armored up and protected, right? And these asks are so much better received when buy-in, commitment, and positive vibes are already on board. So the focus is not the short-term change. The focus is using the mental shift created by the short-term change to make the big asks that we think are going to move beyond changing neck pain or back pain and towards changing lives. But we do think that it's that progression that allows the sales process and allows the relationship to coincide with what you're asking out of the individual. This conversation can go so much further, right? Because you think about how many folks are out there really hating on things like manual therapy or passive treatment, right? I think in many cases, it's not the manual therapy anybody hates on. It's the language that surrounds it, right? It's the ridiculous explanations that are given to explain it. It's the communication that's always the problem. And I think the same is true with short-term changes. If you and the patient are fist bumping and making it all about the short-term change, that patient's going to get off the train the moment the symptoms are gone. But if you wrap your communication together properly, if you give that early on in that person's plan of care, if you say, hey, Joanne, it looks like your neck is killing you. We got to get the edge off of that thing, right? Let me get up there, see if we can't change that chemical environment a bit. Let me give you some strategies at home. We got to get you to where you're not wincing your face 24/7, right? The reason we got to get there is so that once you get there and you can tolerate more load, we can really begin to progress your strength and clean up some of the mobility issues around that area that are making it suffer so badly, right? We can get the actual work done that will make sure it never comes back. In other words, we're going to create the short-term change so that we can do the meaningful stuff. Right? We're gonna take the edge off your back pain so some of that pain inhibition goes away so we can load you up progressively so your tissue gets more resilient so you never get hurt again. So you can thrive more than you have in the past 10 years. We're going to do these things early, use these tips and tricks early on to get to the meat and potatoes. If you phrase it that way, right, that external locus of control is not fed, is not developed, because the patient early on knows, oh good, you've got some things that can get me out of this miserable scenario, but you're also setting the expectation that the reason you're doing it is so you can do the important stuff. You're putting the focus on phase 2. But you're also willing to do phase 1 to make the big ask for phase 2. But the expectation is being set a priori. It really isn't about hating, I don't think, on these individual interventions. It's about being frustrated they're not communicated properly. And the same goes for short-term change. There's no reason to hate on someone feeling dramatically better after your session. That's a really hard thing to get down on, right? The problem is if you don't use that positive emotion and that shift in expectation to then zoom out, become regionally interdependent focused, become prevention focused, become whole body focused, and use and leverage that momentum to make the big shift that allows you to change more than neck pain allows you to change your life. If you don't capitalize on that, then I'm going to hate on short-term change right along with you. If you leverage the momentum of short-term change to change the person's life in the long term, I think it's beautifully architected. Think about that a bit. Think about how we can leverage short-term change. Stop focusing on it, start leveraging it. Meet the patient where you are to create an opportunity for the big ask. Get things going in the right direction and then drop. How fit are you going to let me get you? How much armor are you going to let us put on you before you leave here? How invincible are you going to be when you take back to the streets? Those are the kind of things we're talking about the moment the patient is open to listening. But if they aren't open to it, you're just lecturing at them. If they aren't open to it, you're just lecturing at them. All right. Have an awesome day, you guys. Get back there in clinic. Heading to Birmingham on Friday, but have a couple things to do around here. A couple of really exciting announcements for ICE as far as upcoming courses, but I can't drop those just yet. I'm going to have one that starts up in November and one that starts up in February, very much paralleling where I'm going with my clinical practice, as well as where many of us in the ICE crew, but need to hang on to that for just a moment longer. Hopefully by next week, we can drop that here on the show. Everyone, have a great day in clinic. Sorry about the 1 hour late. Hope everyone was able to catch this. Cheers.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the PT on Ice Daily Show. If you enjoyed this content, head on over to iTunes and leave us a review. And be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at the Institute of Clinical Excellence. If you're interested in getting plugged into more ICE content on a weekly basis while earning CEUs from home, check out our virtual ICE online mentorship program at ptonice.com. While you're there, sign up for our Hump Day Hustling newsletter for a free email every Wednesday morning with our top 5 research articles and social media posts that we think are worth reading. Head over to ptonice.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to sign up.